Welcome to the Playing Books Podcast.
We're looking at key insights and techniques drawn from How to Talk to Anyone, 92 Little Tricks for Big Success in Relationships by Leil Lowndes.
That's right. And think of this deep dive as unlocking a kind of practical blueprint. We're going to distill the most impactful ideas from these sources.
Yeah.
The specific, actionable techniques that you can actually use.
Yeah, the things that can genuinely change how you connect with people, like right now.
Exactly.
Our goal is to really understand what makes some individuals seem effortlessly magnetic, those people who just seem to excel in any social or professional setting, and then pull out the core principles you can apply. Let's dive in.
Okay, let's unpack this foundational idea presented in the source material. It starts with a pretty striking claim.
Which is?
That a vast majority of your success in life, up to 85%, is attributed to your skills in dealing with people.
85%. Wow. That number alone is compelling. And the source highlights that while classic advice exists, like Dale Carnegie, the way we interact has evolved. It's not just about the broad strokes anymore. It's about the nuanced how in today's world.
Exactly. And the nuance begins, the moment you meet someone. The sources emphasize the incredible power of first impressions. People have this almost instantaneous, instinctive sixth sense about you the second they see you.
It's like that gut feeling, right? Before you even speak a word, your body language is basically broadcasting a message.
Totally.
And as the source puts it, everyone you meet is subconsciously asking themselves, how do you like me so far? And your immediate non-verbal answer to that unspoken question, it just sets the entire tone.
It absolutely does.
Yeah.
Your body speaks volumes before your mouth even opens. Involuntary signals like eye movements or where your hands are.
Yeah.
They're constantly being read.
Right.
Which is why mastering body language isn't just helpful. The source suggests it's fundamental.
Okay, let's get into some specific techniques from the source that address this. One of the most memorable is the flooding smile, technique number 1.
Yeah, the flooding smile. What's fascinating about this one is the timing. It's described as not being like, boom, an instant flash, but a slower, gradually spreading smile. It takes a moment to completely light up your face. The source gives this example of Missy, whose smile felt so incredibly genuine because it arrives slowly.
And why does that feel more sincere? Is it just the delay?
Well, the source suggests it's because an instant switch-on smile can feel generic, like it's for anyone and everyone.
Okay.
A slower smile feels like it's specifically in response to the person you're greeting. It makes them feel uniquely special and seen. It's about making the recipient feel like that smile is truly, dedicated to them in that moment.
That makes sense. Building on that, the source dedicates a lot of attention to the power of eyes. Eye contact is a potent psychological tool, apparently.
Definitely.
There are a couple of techniques mentioned. Sticky eyes is one. Technique number 2.
Sticky eyes is pretty straightforward, but really powerful. It's just keeping your eye contact focused intently on the person who is speaking to you. Don't let your eyes wander off.
Right.
The source shares this anecdote about a hearing-impaired woman in a seminar audience because she had to watch the speaker's face constantly to read lips. She inadvertently used this technique, and her intense focus made the speaker feel incredibly compelling and really listened to. It just demonstrates deep engagement.
Okay, so sticky eyes is about focusing on the speaker. But then there's another eye technique, epoxy eyes technique number 3. That sounds a bit more intense, maybe even strategic.
It is. Yeah, it's definitely more strategic. Epoxy eyes is about maintaining intense eye contact, but specifically with the person you are listening with or the person you're interested in influencing.
Oh.
Rather than the person who is currently speaking. So this requires at least 3 people in the interaction.
Right.
The source suggests this can slightly disorient the target listener, the one you're looking at. Makes them think, why are they looking at me so intently?
So it signals a profound interest, not just in the general conversation, but specifically in their presence or their reaction.
Exactly, yeah. It's noted as a technique used sometimes by, bosses, maybe police interrogators, or even Romeos pursuing romantic interest. People who want to signal deep interest or evaluation of a specific person in the group, not just sort of passively listening to whoever's talking. It's powerful precisely because it directs that focus where you want it to land.
Interesting. Okay, moving beyond the eyes to how you hold your entire body. The Lowndes visualization technique, number 4, that's for projecting confidence, right?
Yeah, the source paints this great picture of the Lowndes high-wire family right after a successful performance. Standing tall, shoulders back, chin up, just radiating this quiet pride and success. This technique is about mentally adopting that physical posture. Basically, stand like someone who feels confident and accomplished. The idea is, even if you're nervous inside, aligning your body this way can actually shift your internal state a bit, and definitely how others perceive you.
Okay, so kind of fake it till you make it with your posture?
Sort of, yeah. But it does influence how you feel.
There are other body language techniques aimed at sending a strong, nonverbal, wow, I really like you signal.
Oh.
The big baby pivot is one, number 5.
This one's pretty simple. It involves turning your entire body towards a new acquaintance the moment you greet them, like full torso.
Uh-huh.
The source likens it to how you'd instinctively turn your whole body towards a precious child you're interacting with. Carla's story in the book illustrates this. She found just turning her body fully towards people at a party, instead of giving like a half turn or a side glance, made a huge difference in how approachable she seemed.
So it's a physical way of signaling, my full attention is on you, and you are special right now.
Exactly. Very clear signal.
And related to that is technique number 6, hello, old friend.
Right. The idea here is purely mental. You imagine the new person you're meeting is actually a long-lost friend you're absolutely thrilled to see again.
Okay.
The source says this visualization triggers a genuine, positive physical response.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a light in your eyes, a warmth in your smile, an open posture. It telegraphs authentic joy and warmth towards this new person. You don't need to pretend you actually know them. Just conjure up that feeling of happy recognition as you greet them.
It changes your whole demeanor towards them.
Instantly.
Now, the source also touches on subconscious behaviors that can, well, undermine us, particularly fidgeting. It warns against the appearance of lying, right?
Yeah.
Even if you're telling the truth, nervous affects can be misinterpreted.
Yes. Technique number 7, limit the fidget. It's about consciously suppressing those distracting signs of nervousness, like shifting your weight constantly, rubbing your neck, blinking excessively, loosening your collar.
Things you might not even realize you're doing.
Exactly. The classic example given is the Nixon-Kennedy debate. Nixon's visible discomfort, apparently he was sweating, looked shifty, partly due to the setup and maybe recovering from illness.
Right, the bad makeup story.
Yeah, that too. But viewers read it as nervousness or insincerity compared to Kennedy's more composed demeanor, even though Kennedy probably faced similar pressures. It's a stark reminder that even unintentional body language deeply impacts credibility.
It seems like a lot of these initial techniques really hinge on just being aware of the signals you're sending out and then intentionally choosing more positive ones.
Absolutely. It's about taking control of that initial nonverbal communication channel.
Okay, so once you've hopefully made that strong first impression, the next challenge is actually navigating the conversation itself. Small talk.
Yeah, small talk can feel daunting, even for successful people. The source mentions stage fright analogy. But there are techniques to make it smoother. One is make a mood match, technique 10.
Make a mood match. How does that work?
It involves taking like a quick voice sample and maybe a psychic photograph of the other person's expression and tone the moment you approach them. Just for a brief second, you try to match their energy level or mood
Okay.
before attempting to shift it or introduce your own topic. The source uses the example of a maitre d' at Stella's party, who briefly adopted the sort of languid, slow tone of the person he was speaking to before injecting his own energy. It creates this moment of unconscious rapport.
So it's like subtly joining them where they are first before trying to guide them somewhere else.
Precisely, yeah. It makes them feel understood on a subconscious, nonverbal level.
Yeah.
The source also highlights the immense power of delivery in small talk. It's not just what you say, but really how you say it.
Right, like that person at the party anecdote. Saying relatively banal things, but doing it with such energy and passion that everyone was totally captivated.
That anecdote really drives the point home. Enthusiasm and energy in your voice can make even really simple topics engaging. The source contrasts this with giving generic, unspecific answers when asked questions, like the example of responding, "Oh, anything is fine," when asked about lunch preferences. Specificity, even in simple answers, is generally better.
But then, on the flip side, the source also points out the effectiveness of the unoriginal. Technique 11. Referencing Senator Hayakawa, who used common topics like the weather really effectively.
Yeah, the difference there, according to the source, was the sincerity and presence he brought to it. The argument is that simple, even unoriginal conversation starters delivered with genuine interest and warmth can be far more effective than trying too hard to be clever or complex.
Yeah.
It's really about making the other person feel comfortable and connected.
Okay. What about making yourself more approachable, encouraging people to actually talk to you? The What's It technique, number 12, addresses this.
This one's simple but kind of brilliant. Basically, wear or carry something slightly unusual or conversation worthy. A unique piece of jewelry, an interesting tie, a distinctive lapel pin, maybe even a book with a catchy title.
Gotcha.
It gives people an easy, non-threatening reason to approach you and start a conversation just by asking about it. Hey, what's that pin? And the source also encourages you to become a what's it seeker yourself, actively looking for these conversational hooks on other people.
A two-way street. Nice. And if you have a specific person you want to meet in a crowded room, the source suggests, who's that? Technique 13.
Yeah, who's that? This is arguably the most effective, yet maybe the least used technique by a lot of people, especially non-politicians. It's simply asking the host, or someone who knows the person you want to meet, to make an introduction, or even just provide a little background information first.
Leverage existing connections.
Exactly. It removes the awkwardness of a completely cold approach. There's also technique 14, eavesdrop in.
Eavesdrop in sounds a bit sneaky.
Well, not maliciously. It's about positioning yourself near a group you want to join, listening discreetly for a topic you can genuinely comment on, and then chiming in naturally when there's a slight pause. You're not interrupting, just finding an entry point based on what they're already discussing.
Okay, so more like listening in to find a relevant way to join.
Precisely.
So once you've connected, either by being approached or making an introduction, how do you describe yourself in a way that's actually engaging? The source warns against the naked city or job, techniques 15 and 16.
Ah, yes. Never the naked city and never the naked job. Basically, don't just say Columbus, Ohio, or I'm an accountant. The source strongly advises against these one-word or bare-bones descriptions.
Because it just stops the conversation dead.
Pretty much. Instead, the advice is to learn a few engaging facts or stories about your hometown or your profession that you can tailor, the source calls it, different bait to the person you're talking to.
Like saying Columbus is a major product testing city if you're talking to a business person. Or talking about how you help clients navigate complex financial regulations as an accountant, rather than just stating your job title.
Exactly. The source talks about the Devlin debacle, where a bare answer led to this awkward silence. Compare that to the nuclear scientist example, who learned to explain his job in terms of its benefits to society. It's about providing what the source calls the nutshell resume, a brief, benefit-oriented description of what you do and how it impacts others. Like the Brian Tracy example, I help companies increase their sales. It makes you and your background memorable and, crucially, relevant to the listener.
This makes me think, for you, our listener, right now, how could you describe your job or maybe your hometown using a benefits statement or an interesting tailored fact? Something to think about for the next time you meet someone new.
It really does require a little bit of prep work, finding those interesting angles about yourself. Okay, moving on. The source offers ways to sound more confident and polished in conversation, suggesting you can actually sound smarter just by swapping out a relatively small number of common words.
That feels counterintuitive, just like 50 words can make a difference in sounding respected.
According to the source, yeah. It's not about suddenly using obscure jargon, but maybe using a thesaurus for common everyday words like smart, nice, good. The idea is replacing just one or two of these words a day with slightly more precise or evocative synonyms like ingenious instead of smart or resourceful. Over time, it subtly elevates your language.
Okay.
It helps distinguish you from people who might use the same few adjectives over and over, like Gary's repetitive compliment example in the book.
Gotcha. The source also talks about avoiding sounding too anxious for connection, especially when you find common ground. Technique 27, kill the quick, me too!
This is a great technique, I think. When someone reveals something you have in common, a hobby, a place you visited, whatever, the source suggests waiting just a moment. Let them elaborate a bit more, maybe ask a follow-up question, and then reveal your shared experience. Don't just jump in immediately with, oh, me too.
Why not? What's wrong with showing enthusiasm?
It can sometimes make you seem a little overeager, maybe even desperate to connect. By delaying slightly, your shared interest feels more considered, more impactful, like you've genuinely processed what they said and then realized the cool of connection, rather than just latching on to the first similarity you hear.
Okay, makes sense. Play it a little cooler. And related to making the other person feel seen and heard, there's technique 28, communication.
Right. The source highlights the power of starting sentences with the word you, like, or You might find this interesting, or you told me it immediately grabs the listener's attention because the word you is inherently self-relevant to them.
Right, everyone perks up when they hear you.
Exactly. It makes the conversation directly about them, which, as the source notes, kind of pushes their pride button and encourages a more positive response.
This feels like a subtle but potentially really powerful shift in focus.
It is. It moves the conversational center of gravity from I to you. The source also strongly advises avoiding cliches, particularly around successful or sophisticated people.
Ah, yes. Technique number 30. Don't touch a cliche with a 10-foot pole.
Exactly. Using those overworked phrases, busy as a bee, fit as a fiddle, at the end of the day, it makes you sound, in the source's rather blunt words, uncommonly common.
Ouch.
Yeah. It basically signals a lack of original thought or maybe a limited vocabulary. Successful communicators often stand out just by avoiding these linguistic shortcuts.
Instead, the source suggests using more engaging language, perhaps even some oratorical techniques like number 31. Use Jaw Smith's jive.
This involves incorporating maybe clever phrases, quotes you like, or even developing your own memorable quotables related to your field or interests. The source mentions a veterinarian who called a certain procedure a drumstick transplant and apparently got national attention for it. It's about injecting personality and memorability into your language, maybe with a touch of rhyme or cleverness, but it has to be relevant, not just random.
On the flip side of positive language, the source has some really strong opinions on negative communication, specifically Technique 33, trash the teasing.
Oh yeah, this is presented as one of the absolute worst conversational habits if you're aiming for career or relationship advancement. Making jokes at someone else's expense, even if it seems like light teasing, is characterized as little cat behavior. The source states pretty unequivocally that successful people, the big cats, avoid this entirely.
Why so harsh on teasing?
It's seen as a form of insecurity, basically. Like you need to put others down, even playfully, to feel better yourself. And it can build resentment or mark you as someone who maybe can't be really trusted with sensitive feelings.
That's a powerful statement, associating teasing with hitting a glass ceiling.
The source is quite firm on that point. It suggests that truly confident people just don't need to do it. Finally, in this section, the source addresses delivering bad news. It's not just the news itself, but the attitude you convey. Technique 34.
Delivered the bad news, like a doctor or a grief counselor.
Right. This technique emphasizes the critical importance of demonstrating genuine compassion and sympathy for the receiver's likely emotional state before you deliver the facts. The source contrasts the sort of clueless, smiling neighbor who delivered bad news about ruining plans with the empathetic approach of professionals who handle difficult information regularly. It's about sharing the sentiment first, letting them feel heard in their reaction, which actually makes them more receptive to the information itself when you get to it.
This moves us neatly into navigating situations where you might feel like an outsider, perhaps when everyone else is speaking gobbledygook, jargon related to their job or hobby.
Yeah, insider lingo can definitely be a barrier. But the source provides practical ways to bridge this gap. One fun technique is number 38, scramble therapy.
Scramble therapy. That sounds intriguing. What is it?
The idea is, maybe once a month or so, deliberately do something completely new and outside your usual sphere. Attend a lecture on an unfamiliar topic, try a new sport, visit a niche exhibition or museum. The source claims that even one exposure allows you to pick up maybe 80% of a relevant basic lingo, and, crucially, the insider questions people in that field ask each other.
The insider questions are key. Technique 39. Sound like an insider with opening questions.
Exactly. The source gives examples. Instead of asking a writer the generic, is writing hard, you ask fiction or nonfiction. Or instead of asking an astronaut, were you scared? You ask, how many missions have you flown?
Right.
These are the types of questions that signal you have at least some understanding of their world. The source says asking the right opening question is like a good first serve in tennis. It shows you know the game. And definitely avoid the dumb outsider questions like asking a scuba diver, aren't you afraid of sharks?
You can research this stuff too, right? By reading up, maybe calling relevant organizations, or just paying close attention during that scramble therapy exposure.
Absolutely. And another powerful technique in this area is number 40, bear their hot button.
Care their hot button.
This is about asking probing questions about someone's job or hobby, but specifically trying to find out what they are most passionate or excited about within that field. The source gives the example of asking Yamika, the doctor, about her specific medical interests beyond just being a doctor, or the "see ya at the big one" insider salute used by a specific group on Route 50. Find that topic that really lights them up, ask them about that. People love talking about their passions.
It gives you a direct line to their enthusiasm, bypassing the generic stuff. The source also covers how to learn this insider knowledge more formally, suggesting Technique 41, read their rags.
Right. This involves actually reading trade journals, industry magazines, or even specific sections of the newspaper, like real estate or advertising, that are relevant to the other person's world. The source uses this anecdote about learning flower language from a client's trade magazine to connect better with her. It provides both the lingo and the current hot topics for conversation.
Okay, so doing your homework on their world. What about talking in other countries? Obviously, language is a barrier, but the source says you need more.
Yeah, more than just language. Technique 42 is bone up on their backyard customs. Learning about international customs is crucial. The source tells the story of Geraldine's business card gaffes in Japan.
Oh, yeah.
Taking it with one hand, glancing at it briefly, shoving it in her back pocket, writing on it later, not having Japanese on the flip side.
Ah.
Like 5 mistakes right there that damaged the relationship before it even started. Little cultural details matter hugely.
Wow. And there's even a Technique 43 for getting the insider's price. Talk the talk.
Yeah, this is about using specific technical terms or demonstrating insider knowledge to signal, the score, especially when negotiating. The example given is negotiating with a painter, talking about prepping, cutting in, mentioning holidays, missed spots. Using their lingo shows you understand the work involved and aren't easily fooled, which can lead to a fairer price.
Interesting application. Okay, let's shift towards building deeper connection, creating rapport. The source starts with the familiar idea that similarity breeds attraction.
Birds of a feather.
Right, but that we can consciously cultivate connection even without obvious similarities.
Language subtleties play a role here. Maybe using regional terms if appropriate, or knowing the specific vocabulary within someone's hobby. The source mentions the difference between having cats, owning horses, keeping fish. Apparently, these little distinctions matter to insiders. Echoing someone's specific words subtly can also build rapport.
And the source talks about analogies, specifically Technique 46, potent imaging.
This is about using analogies that are relevant to the listener's world, not just your own.
Right. Make it about them.
Precisely. So instead of using, say, complex football analogies, if the person you're talking to clearly doesn't follow the sport.
Which would just leave them confused or bored?
Exactly. Use analogies from their known world, maybe gardening, boating, cooking, sports they play or follow. The source argues this makes your point much more powerful and memorable because it connects directly to their experience. And it subtly hints at a shared understanding, or at least an effort to understand their perspective.
It makes your idea land more effectively because it's presented in a framework they already get.
Perfectly put. And showing empathy is another core rapport builder. The source suggests not just feeling empathy, but actively, vocally, employing empathizers. Technique 47.
So actually saying things that show you understand.
Yes, using full sentences like, "I see what you mean, that sounds really difficult," or "I can imagine how you must feel," rather than just brief nods or, It validates the speaker's feelings and encourages them to share more. The source takes this a step further with Technique 48, anatomically correct empathizers.
Okay, that sounds specific. Matching your empathizers to their sensory language, like visual, auditory, kinesthetic.
Kind of, yeah. If you notice someone uses a lot of visual language,
Sure.
"I see clearly on it." Let's look at this. Respond with a visual empathizer. "I see your point," or "You have a clear perspective." Mm-hmm. If they use auditory language, "That sounds good. I hear you." Use an auditory empathizer. "I hear you loud and clear." If kinesthetic, "I feel strongly about this." Maybe, "I get a feel for what you're saying." The source clarifies. It's less about diagnosing their core sensory type and more about simply echoing the type of language they are currently using. It shows you're really tracking with them on their wavelength, like the Brenda the Tap Dancer auditory example.
That's incredibly subtle. It really feels like these small techniques, they just build on each other cumulatively.
They absolutely do. The source even outlines different levels of conversational closeness, starting from superficial cliches about the weather, moving to facts, then feelings about those facts, and eventually deeper emotional sharing. These techniques basically help you navigate that progression smoothly.
And creating shared experiences, even small ones, like developing private jokes technique 50. The Daryl Quack example is highlighted as a way to build rapport and even rekindle connections instantly.
Yeah, that shared history becomes a shortcut to intimacy.
So, thinking about this rapport section, which of these techniques feels most applicable or maybe interesting to you, listener, right now? Could you maybe try using a potent image from someone else's world this week? Or consciously employ an emphasizer when someone's sharing something?
It really is about experimentation, seeing what feels right. Okay, moving on. The source delves into the power of praise. Technique 55 and onwards. Praise is a common tool, obviously, but one that can easily feel insincere or backfire if not done skillfully, especially in today's perhaps more cynical world.
Right. So for complimenting strangers, the source offers a very specific, almost like cautioned technique, the killer compliment, technique 55.
Yes, the source practically gives a warning label with this one. The technique is to find one, attractive, specific, and unique quality in a stranger, something beyond the obvious nice tie. You deliver it sincerely, eye to eye, using their name if you happen to know it, and ideally at the end of the conversation, not the beginning. The source shares Christine's story and some workshop examples where complimenting something specific and maybe a bit unusual, like you have beautiful hands or you have very penetrating brown eyes, had a really powerful positive effect.
It sounds potent, but the source stresses using it judiciously, right?
Very judiciously. Only once every 6 months or so per person, source advises, to maintain its impact and avoid seeming manipulative or creepy.
Okay, handle with care. For people you know well, though, friends, loved ones, the approach is different. Little strokes. Technique 56.
Yeah, little strokes, frequent, small, verbal boosters, just simple things. Nice job. Well done. That was clever. Good thinking. The source reminds us that adults, deep down, still need frequent positive recognition, kind of like kids do. The mother-daughter story in the book illustrates how easily we can fall into correcting more than praising, and the impact of consciously adding more of these little strokes. There's also technique 57, the knee-jerk wow W, basically. Praising accomplishments, big or small, immediately upon hearing about them. Don't delay the positive feedback.
The source also has advice for receiving praise gracefully. Technique 58, boomeranging.
Right. Instead of deflecting or minimizing the compliment, this whole thing, you simply reflect it back with gratitude, like, that's very kind of you to say, or thank you, I appreciate that. It's a graceful way to accept praise without dismissing it or getting awkward about it.
And for building deeper connection with loved ones, there's a technique called the tombstone game. Number 59.
That sounds morbid. It sounds it, but it's actually quite profound. The source suggests asking important people in your life, maybe subtly or directly depending on the relationship, what they would want written on their tombstone.
Okay. Why?
Because the answer often reveals their deepest source of pride, or what they feel truly defines their life's purpose or core values. Remembering this, and then referencing it later in a moment of genuine appreciation. Harry, I really admire how you always live life your way, just like you said was most important to you. It connects with their core identity and feels incredibly meaningful.
Wow. That technique really highlights the deep dive. It's about understanding someone's fundamental values.
Yeah.
Okay, let's shift to more challenging situations. The source addresses communicating when body language is absent, like on the phone. Technique 62 onwards.
Yeah, phone calls strip away so many of the nonverbal cues we rely on. The source gives the example of Ronnie, the travel agent, who apparently sounded really snippy and abrupt on the phone, but was actually lovely in person. The technique offered to combat this is number 62. The switchboard operator's, oh wow, it's you.
Projecting warmth and enthusiasm over the phone, even if you don't know who's calling.
Exactly. It's about consciously adopting the persona of, like, an old-fashioned, genuinely friendly switchboard operator who sounds absolutely delighted to connect with whoever's on the other end. The source highlights Steve, the office manager whose staff adopted this approach, making everyone who called feel welcome and important. It conveys confidence and approachability purely through your tone of voice.
The source also touches on voicemail messages, saying they should be crisp and intelligent, and suggests technique 67, the cliffhanger, for getting callbacks.
Yeah, leaving a little mini mystery in your message. Just enough intrigue to make someone curious enough to call back fairly promptly, like a radio DJ promising a big reveal after the commercial break. Call me back. I have something interesting to run by you regarding the X project.
A significant challenge in many professional or even social contexts is dealing with gatekeepers, assistants, secretaries, sometimes even spouses. They hold the keys to the kingdom sometimes.
They definitely hold influence. Technique 63, sneak past the gatekeeper, is key here. The source emphasizes treating them with genuine respect, acknowledging their humanity, using their name, asking how they are doing, recognizing their role. Mr. Creighton's failure with Mrs. Big Cat is the cautionary tale. He apparently ignored her completely and failed to get past to her husband. Treating the gatekeepers as a person, not just an obstacle, can make all the difference.
This aligns with that broader theme we keep seeing, making people feel valued. Another crucial element in communication, according to the source, is timing.
Oh, hugely important. Technique 65, get what you want by timing. The source stresses always asking, is this a good time, or do you have a minute, before launching into a request or an important conversation.
Why is that so critical?
Because people are just way less receptive if their internal clock is off, if they're rushing to a meeting, stressed about a deadline, distracted by something else. Respecting their time and mental space dramatically increases your chances of a positive outcome. Similarly, voice messages should ideally state an expected return time, unlike Dan's rambling messages in the book that showed a lack of respect for the recipient's time.
Makes sense. Be considerate. The source even suggests a technique for learning from your own interactions after the fact. Technique 70, instant replay.
Yeah, this one's interesting. Ethically and legally, of course, but recording important business conversations, with consent where required, and listening back multiple times.
Like watching game film in sports.
Exactly the analogy the source uses. You don't truly understand what happened on a play like a fumble until you watch the replay frame by frame. Listening back to your conversations allows you to catch subtleties, hesitations in their voice, tones you missed, things that were meant beyond just the literal words. It helps you understand the subtext.
This feeds right into working a room and networking effectively, where picking up on subtleties and remembering details is absolutely vital. The source reinforces earlier ideas like using a what's it technique 12 or who's at 13 to initiate connections.
And for remembering people and making them feel important, there's technique 75, tracking.
Which is remembering and referencing small, specific details about someone's life from previous conversations, right?
Exactly. The source argues this makes people feel almost like a movie star, like someone whose small life events are important enough for you to remember and ask about later. Remembering what they mentioned they had for breakfast, if it was unusual, a detail about their family trip, a challenge they were facing, or even a small achievement anniversary shows you truly listened and value them as an individual beyond just the current interaction.
And the practical tool for this is Technique 76, the business card dossier.
Right. Immediately scribbling notes on the back of someone's business card right after you meet them. Details about your conversation, unique facts about them, their interests, maybe even something about their appearance to jog your memory.
Remembering that Joe Smith is not just a state senator, but the state senator who accomplished X or who loves fly fishing.
Exactly. The unique, specific detail. And while you're actually talking to someone, especially in a sales or negotiation context, the source highlights technique 77, eyeball selling.
Which is continuously reading the listener's body language to gauge their receptiveness.
Yes, constantly scanning for those little cues. The source describes Jimmy, the salesperson, who constantly watched for fidgets, twitches, how they held their hands, whether they leaned in or pulled back physically. Their body, the source says, is like a broadcasting station sending out signals.
What kind of signals?
Things like picking up a contract or pen might indicate readiness to buy, while subtle head shakes, even if they're verbally agreeing, might mean no, deep down. Learning to read these signals tells you when to press a point, when to back off, or when they might be ready to agree or close the deal. The source really encourages reading more about body language specifically.
Okay, let's talk about handling mistakes, both your own and other people's. The source has some pretty pointed advice here, starting with Technique 78.
Right. If someone else makes a mistake or a social blunder, spills coffee, drops food, says something awkward, the source recommends Technique 78. Win their affection by overlooking their bloopers.
How?
The technique is simple. Completely ignore it. Act as if it absolutely did not happen. The source contrasts the common instinct to react, maybe jump to help or point it out, with how big players at a lunch table described in the book completely ignored someone spilling a baked potato. Treating it as utterly inconsequential is key. Drawing attention to it, even with good intentions, just magnifies their embarrassment.
That's a really graceful way to handle those awkward moments. Protect their dignity. What if you're the one who makes the mistake?
Then it's Technique 88.
Hmm?
My goof, your game. This is about ensuring that if you mess up, the other person benefits significantly from it, not just getting the original error corrected.
Give me an example.
The source uses a customer service scenario. If you made a mistake with their order or booking, don't just fix it. Fix it and add something extra, a discount, an upgrade, something tangible that makes them almost glad you made the mistake in the first place because they came out ahead. It flips a potential negative into a memorable positive interaction. Your goof becomes your gain in terms of goodwill.
And then there's a more advanced, maybe somewhat controversial technique. Number 89, trap a rat with class.
Yeah, this one requires judgment. If you catch someone clearly in a lie or attempting to cheat you, the source advises not cornering them publicly or making a big scene. Instead, give them a quiet, face-saving way out, an escape hatch.
Like the Lady Stephanie and the Fabergé egg story.
Exactly. Giving the suspected guest a plausible, private way to find and return the missing valuable egg, avoiding public accusation. Then, the source advises you quietly remove that person from your life or business dealings later. The goal is to resolve the immediate situation without creating an unnecessary public enemy while still protecting yourself long term.
Interesting. Prioritizing a clean, quiet break over potentially messy confrontation. The source also suggests techniques for group settings, like helping someone else who's maybe struggling to get their point across.
Right. Technique 79. Lend a helping tongue. If someone is interrupted mid-story or seems to be losing the thread or the group's attention, the source suggests jumping in briefly, not to take over, but to summarize where they were, and politely invite them to continue. John, you were just telling us about your trip to Costa Rica. What happened next? Or something similar.
Why is that so effective?
The source uses an ancient Japan analogy, suggesting that saving someone's story in a group setting is almost like saving their life in that culture. A bit dramatic, maybe, but the point is it earns immense gratitude from the person you rescued, and often respect from the rest of the group for your social awareness and generosity.
Okay, finally, a few points on asking for favors and also leading in groups. When asking for something, the source advises technique 80, bear the buried YFM, and YOY.
Right. Clearly state what's in it for me, YOFM, why you're asking, and importantly, what's in it for you, WIFIY, meaning what's in it for them, the person you're asking. Even if the benefit to them is minimal or indirect, acknowledge it.
Why state your own benefit? Isn't that obvious?
Being upfront about your motives avoids looking like a sly fox with a hidden agenda. The source uses this, Sam, the marketing head example, being transparent builds trust. It shows you're not trying to manipulate them, and you've considered their perspective too.
Okay. And after someone agrees to do you a favor, technique 81, let them savor the favor.
Yeah, this is a subtle one. The source suggests waiting at least 24 hours, if possible, between when they agree to the favor and when you actually ask them to perform it or follow up.
Why the delay?
It allows them to enjoy the feeling of being generous or helpful for a bit without immediately being burdened by the task itself. The Sonny and Evans real estate analogy in the book highlights how seeming insensitive or demanding in small things, like immediately asking for the favor, can suggest you might be insensitive in larger dealings too. Give them space to feel good about saying yes.
It creates a better feeling about the whole exchange. The source also talks about creating safe havens, situations where business or difficult topics are off limits.
Right. Technique 83. Parties are for prater, meaning social parties are for light, casual conversation, not for hitting someone up for a job, closing a deal, or having a confrontation. The Kirsten's Christmas party example shows the negative consequences of breaking this rule. Handle business during business hours.
And technique 84 applies this to dinner too. What's not to say at dinner?
Yeah, business meals, even if they're for business purposes, are generally considered safe havens too. Avoid bringing up really tough negotiations, unpleasant topics, or criticisms over the meal itself. Keep the mealtime conversation pleasant.
Technique 85. Chance encounters are for chit-chat.
If you bump into someone unexpectedly, keep it brief and light. Don't use that random encounter in the hallway or grocery store to launch into a sales pitch or a sensitive discussion. Schedule a proper time for that later. Respect the context.
Okay, couple more advanced ones. Getting information in emotional situations. Technique 87. Echo the emo.
This is crucial when dealing with someone who's upset, angry, or distressed. Let them express their feelings first. Empathize strongly with the emotion. Wow, that sounds incredibly frustrating. I can hear how upset you are. Validate the feeling before you try to get the facts or solve the problem. The source says emotions shout, facts only speak. You need to address the shouting emotion first. The ER Nurse Sue example illustrates this well.
Address the feeling, then the facts. What about getting the best from service personnel? Technique 90. Buttercups for their boss.
This is simple but effective. If you receive good service, Sincerely promise to write or email a complimentary letter to their supervisor, mentioning them by name. Or actually do it.
Why does that work so well?
It makes them feel genuinely appreciated, and it's a tangible potential benefit for them. Recognition, maybe even a raise or promotion. The source suggests it makes them try even harder for you in the future. The Staples assistant manager and Tim, the travel agent examples show how powerful this can be, like an insurance policy for good service.
And a final technique for being a leader or influencer in a group setting, 91, be the first clapper.
When someone finishes speaking, especially after a performance or presentation, or even just making a good point in a meeting, be the very first person to show appreciation. Start the applause, nod vigorously, offer the first verbal agreement.
Great point.
What does that signal? The source says it signals confidence in your own judgment. You're not waiting to see what the consensus is. You're willing to lead the positive response. It subtly positions you as someone decisive and supportive. So, the source concludes by really emphasizing the cumulative effect of practicing all these little techniques. It draws a contrast between people who struggle to connect, like the characters Jane and Dan in the book, and those who seem to rise effortlessly. Barry, Joe, Jimmy, Steve, Tim, Gloria.
Right.
Arguing that nobody really reaches significant success entirely alone. It's built on a foundation of strong relationships, and those relationships are fostered by skillful, intentional communication.
It positions excellence not as like one grand gesture or innate talent, but the result of consistently applying many of these smaller moves over time. The cross-country skiing analogy was good. You need to master many small individual techniques to glide smoothly.
Exactly. These 92 little tricks, practiced and internalized until they become second nature, can indeed help shape your interactions and, as the source strongly suggests, ultimately influence your destiny by improving your connections with literally everyone you meet.
So wow, we've taken a really deep dive into dozens of practical techniques from the source material, covering everything from making those impactful first impressions using body language cues to navigating small talk, sounding more polished and confident, building genuine rapport, handling difficult situations gracefully, and even specific tactics for networking effectively and, well, getting what you need sometimes. These are truly tangible tools for anyone's communication toolbox.
Yeah, what really stands out, I think, is how many of these techniques are fundamentally small, intentional shifts. A slightly delayed smile, finding one specific thing to compliment, asking a question that shows you've listened, making a conscious effort to mirror someone's language or mood for a moment.
Right, they don't seem like huge undertakings individually.
No. And the source makes a really strong case that these seemingly minor adjustments, when applied consistently, can have pretty profound effects on your relationships and your overall success in life.
This definitely raises an important question for you, our listener. After exploring all these insights from the source, which one or two techniques feel most relevant or maybe most challenging for you right now? What's one thing you could commit to practicing maybe just in the coming week to see what difference it might make? Definitely encourage you to grab a copy, purchase the book, and explore it fully for yourself. There's always more to discover.
For sure. And hey, engage with the author's legacy, talk about these ideas, maybe share your own experiences, applying them, use social media, find forums dedicated to the book. Let's keep the conversation going.
And here's the real challenge. Take one or two of these principles this week and actively try to apply them. See what happens. Notice the difference it makes in your interactions, personal or professional.
Let the wisdom of this book genuinely enrich your life. That's the goal, right?
Yeah, exactly. Thank you so much for joining us on the Plain Books podcast.
Yeah, thank you. If you enjoyed this deep dive, if you found it useful, please follow, subscribe, maybe share with others who you think might benefit. We'd really appreciate it.